My name is Sarah Lyons. I'm a staff person at Community Foundations of Canada. I'm happy to welcome you to the information session for social purpose organizations about the Investment Readiness Program. A few housekeeping notes to get us started. We have a presentation for you, so hopefully all of you have been able to log on so that you can see the presentation on your screen. We'll try to be conscious that there are some people who have joined by phone only. This session is being recorded and will be available on both Facebook as well as the Community Foundations of Canada website afterwards. So if you need to go back and review it, you should have no issues in doing so. The second thing I wanted to say is we're going to run about, I believe, 20-25 minutes this afternoon / morning, depending on where you are in Canada. Unfortunately, because of the number of participants we have, and I just had a little look at the bottom of my screen, we're upwards of 400. It's obviously totally unrealistic for us to unmute people and have a conversation. But further, it's not going to be practical, very unfortunately, to grapple with messages or chat, although the Zoom function, of course, will still be open. It's just going to get too chaotic. So we're going to do our very best to transmit a whole lot of information. And if your question is not answered, we would dearly love for you to reach out to us afterwards over email. And you'll see the address at the end of the presentation. That's the best one to reach out to. But I'll just say it aloud right now. It's readiness@communityfoundations.ca. So this info session, which is going to be all in English, there will be a duplicate of this session in French tomorrow afternoon. So if you would like that, please check back on the Community Foundations of Canada website and register for this session in French. I also want to point out that this information session will provide you with information that is most pertinent if your desire and intent is to apply from any part of Canada outside of Quebec. If you are based in Quebec, your organization, and you wish to apply, whether you are working in English or French, we have a similar parallel program in partnership with the Chantier de l'Économie Sociale, which has many of the same features and intent, but slightly different details. And so you should keep in mind that this might be helpful to you, but it's not the be all and end all, and you should consult the website of the Chantier de l'Économie Sociale to find out more. Again, that's uniquely for organizations of any language that are located in the province of Quebec. Otherwise, this information that we're going to share today is consistent to organizations applying and located in any part of the rest of Canada. Thank you. And so again, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Lyons. I'm a staff person at Community Foundations of Canada. I'm going to be co-presenting today with my colleague, Michelle Bridger. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction, and then I'm going to pass it over to Michelle. Team, can we go to the next slide? Okay, so today's agenda. We've got a number of items to take you through. What is social finance? What is the Investment Readiness Program? The opportunity that the IRP presents for social purpose organizations. We're going to do a deep dive on eligibility, uses of funding, how to apply, the application submission and adjudication process, evaluation criteria, and next steps. So ideally, this is everything you need to know as you consider and prepare applications. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a bit of background on what is social finance. Social finance is an investment that delivers a measurable social, cultural, or environmental impact, as well as generating some return for investors. Through loans and investment, social finance can give new actors the opportunity to make a difference. Social finance can take the form of loans, where the investor gets their money back plus interest, or equity investments, where the investor owns a part of the organization. Other forms of social finance that are slightly more complex but increasingly commonplace in Canada and around the world exist. For example, community bonds, where many people loan small amounts to one project, and/or social impact bonds or community-driven outcomes contracts, where the investor is paid only if certain outcomes are achieved. Next slide. So into that context comes the Investment Readiness Program. To put it in a nutshell, the Investment Readiness Program is designed to help social enterprises across Canada to grow and flourish and get ready to seek and accept loans and investments. The idea is to help social enterprises to continue unlocking solutions to pressing social, cultural, and environmental challenges. And in the context then of the program, eligible organizations may receive non-repayable capital. So this is money you spend and do not return. It is not an investment. There is no return to launch, design, measure, and scale their social enterprises. Next slide, please. So a little more detail on the Investment Readiness Program. Many on the call will be familiar, but not everybody, that in its 2018 Fall Economic Statement, the Government of Canada announced an $800 million social finance fund. The Investment Readiness Program is the leading edge of the Social Finance Fund, helping create the conditions for organizations, including small-scale for-profit social enterprises, charities, not-for-profits, and others such as co-ops, to be in a better position to participate in the larger field that the Social Finance Fund will create. So, to try and say that again, starting in 2020, the Government of Canada will be infusing a large amount of investment capital into the Canadian social finance field. And the Investment Readiness Program comes at the leading edge to till the fields a little bit and create more readiness and capacity amongst community level enterprises, including on the part and operated by charities and not-for-profits, to be ready to participate in that expanding social finance field. Can I get the next slide, please? So as part of the Investment Readiness Program, CFC and Community Foundation partners, more on these later, will be accepting applications for non-repayable capital on a scale of $10,000 to $100,000, totaling $18.5 million over the next 15 months. It's open to all types of corporations, provided they have a social purpose, and we're going to be diving deeper on all of these aspects later in the presentation. The funds are to support development towards investment readiness. Other support partners will be running similar but different programs, and will provide more information about these. As well, there are other initiatives in the Investment Readiness Program ecosystem that will be providing learning opportunities and resources to strengthen that ecosystem. So it's helpful maybe to think of the Investment Readiness Program as a cluster of organizations that have been funded by the federal government to create that readiness in the community sector and at the community level, and with a variety of different types of actors, women-led enterprise, Indigenous-led enterprise, etc. And in that cluster of organizations, there are a few, including Community Foundations of Canada and Community Foundations, which is, I think, why most of you are on the call, who are making funding available. But there are also organizations that are creating, filling some gaps in the landscape around things like evaluation, measurement, assessment, etc. But the focus of this webinar is quite clearly on the funding opportunity, and specifically on the one that is currently open and will be open again, being operated by Community Foundations of Canada and Community Foundations. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Michelle to take you through some of those deep dives about our funding program specifically.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. It's great to have you all here. I'm wondering how many people we have now. Quite a lot, so I'm really happy that we've got this many people out here today. So in terms of the way that CFC is going to be administering this program, so specifically the program that's speaking to the actual distribution of funds, we are working with a number of local community foundations that you can see on this page here. Together, those community foundations with other organizations that are experts in the area of social finance, social enterprise, potentially experts in the area of loans like credit unions, schools. So there's a whole bunch of wonderful partnerships that have happened across the country to administer this program. So you can see from this list that we've got about 24 partners, and those are going to be your contacts when you have questions about the IRP, and they're also going to be those who are in touch with you about your application, and they will be administering the evaluation of the applications themselves, so the actual adjudication process. So for example, if you're based in, we can say Northern BC, your key contact would be the Prince George Community Foundation. You can find a list of all of these different regional partners on our website, and we'll create the link for that maybe in the chat box so you guys can see later on. So how does it work? This is just a very simple slide that explains that a social enterprise will apply for non-repayable capital. The system is through an online application portal. It's the same application form that is used across the country. Then it will be adjudicated by those regional consortiums, like I mentioned on the last page. So a local evaluation method. So successful applicants will receive non-repayable capital. That capital can be used to access business services and supports. Those social enterprises will report on the use of their capital and their progress. They'll move on in the terms of this investment readiness spectrum. So they'll be able to move a stage closer to being ready to take on investment. And social enterprises, with the end goal of this program, that social enterprises are more ready for the social finance marketplace. So that's a very kind of high level of what the IRP is supposed to do. So eligibility. So applicants to our program here at CFC, they must be one of these. So it's actually pretty open. You can be a charity or another qualified donee, incorporated, nonprofit organization, nonprofit cooperatives, market sector cooperatives, also private social enterprise businesses that advance a social, cultural, or environmental mission, which means a for-profit company that is in fact a social enterprise. And the reason that we've kind of explained it like that is because a social enterprise in most provinces is not an actual legal entity, but this program is specifically targeting the social enterprise, so that kind of social, cultural, or environmental mission embedded in their mission statement. It's also eligible to hybrid entities, such as the community contribution companies and community interest companies that are found in British Columbia and Nova Scotia. So non-qualified donees must provide evidence of being a social enterprise. And that non-qualified donee refers to a not-for-profit or a for-profit cooperative or company, just being able to demonstrate that impact and being able to explain how you are in fact a social enterprise. So no predetermined allocation by stage of enterprise development or corporate type. So that just means that this program is eligible to anything from an idea, so the ideation stage, all the way to an existing social enterprise that is already creating revenue and maybe just needs to move along that spectrum a little bit, get their finances in order, or work with a lawyer in terms of being ready to go in to get a loan. Also the corporate type, as I explained. So you must have either a charity or a business registration number. So that means that it can't be sole proprietors or individuals. So we've created a little bit of context here around the idea of what is a social enterprise. Because it is a concept that can slightly differ, this definition is referring specifically to the IRP. So this is our definition for the purposes of this program. So a social enterprise is an organization that is mission-driven, aiming to sell goods or services to earn a revenue, while achieving a positive social, cultural, or environmental objective. So a for-profit social enterprise comes in the form of a for-profit business with the difference that the profits are being used to sustain the mission of helping to achieve positive social, cultural, and environmental objectives. So that means that its primary purposes isn't solely making money, it is also to help fund that mission. So a social enterprise will go beyond a socially responsible business. And by that, I mean that a socially responsible business would seek to ensure that it operates in an economically, socially, or environmentally sustainable manner, meaning they do a no harm approach. Versus a social enterprise will go above and beyond to solve a key social, environmental, or cultural issue through the use of a business model which permits the social enterprise to generate revenue for the sake of expanding the impacts of its mission. A socially responsible business, or a business with a strong CSR portfolio, is not eligible for funding through the IRP. If you have any questions about this, you can definitely send our team an email about your specific scenario and we'll help guide you. Next slide. So what can funding be used for? Funds from the IRP can be used to research, launch, design, measure, and scale up your social enterprise, your social purpose organization, to help you prepare to accept investments in the future. So the funds are intended to be used to access services and supports. So that would be expert advice and services to, for example, and this is not limited to these examples on the slide, you can explore a new business idea or develop a business plan to test your idea. You could create a marketing plan to reach new audiences, plan new products or services to grow your revenue. And this would be specifically with the caveat if you're going to plan new products and services, that this is going to help you tie back into that idea that it's moving you along the investment readiness spectrum. It can also help you prepare documentation to approach potential investors. So importantly, the idea is to move your enterprise forward through its own development with that end goal that you are going to take on social finance, so that investment one day. And that's not limited to, for example, 1 year from now. It could be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or 5 years from now. It's part of your sustainability plan. So the funds are not eligible for use towards core operating costs. And a core operating cost is things like existing staff time to do existing work. So another example of that would be increasing your own capacity to do the work that is already done without moving your enterprise forward along the spectrum from idea to investment ready. Some more eligible uses of IRP funding can be a viability study, business planning, accounting services, branding or marketing work, brokerage, financial modeling, impact measurement, investment structuring, tendering and bid writing, legal services, product development, market analysis and understanding, financial recording, negotiation support, management coaching, minor asset purchases to fulfill a contract, minor renovation to fulfill a contract, or software web design products. And the IRP has identified several expert service providers that have been designated by the Government of Canada to carry out some of the above services, or you can choose a different service provider, perhaps one that you've already worked with, somebody that a local, a regional partner has worked with and highly recommends, somebody with a more specific context to your project. So we recommend getting a quote to these, to the services you're asking for to include in your application. So an overview of the application submission and adjudication process. So as I mentioned before, all of the applications are available online through the link mentioned here, and you can go directly to our CFC website to find out more information in terms of the program guidelines, FAQs, and other commonly asked questions, and get some more information before you would apply. We also have PDFs on those websites. So there's going to be more than one application round. The first is already open. It opened on January 8th, and it closes on February 10th. Also, I just want to mention here that if you can't access the portal online, for example, you have broadband issues or you're remotely located, and this would be a barrier to applying, you can contact us directly and we can figure something else internally for you so that you can apply. So applications will be reviewed by a regional review panel. The panel is composed of members of a local community foundation and other relevant experts in the region who are prepared to adjudicate those applications. So you can contact your regional partner, so your local IRP regional partner. As I mentioned, it's on this link that we'll probably share the slides with you afterwards, and you can click on that directly. But it's communityfoundations.ca/meet our IRP regional partners with hyphens. So applicants will be informed of their status by the end of April. So it's a pretty tight timeline for this first round, and we're hoping for a diverse application pool from across the country. So the evaluation criteria. Social purpose organizations should be able to demonstrate their impact in their communities. They must have or plan to operate a mechanism that generates revenue from the sales of goods or services. Sorry, goods and or services. It doesn't have to be both. The proposed project must move the organization forward towards investment readiness in its enterprise development. Social purpose organizations must demonstrate they have a detailed and appropriate budget for their project. CFC encourages applications from rural areas, Indigenous-led and focused organizations, linguistic minority communities, newcomers to Canada, and other minority communities. So your next steps. Our best resource for information at the moment about our applications is CFC's website, and you'll find lots of more information about our funding streams. You can find out whether you're served by a local consortium or by CFC itself. And we do have, and I didn't mention this earlier, but there is a regional partner for most areas across the country, except for the territories and a couple of pockets, specifically Northern Ontario, where we don't have a regional partner at the moment. And this doesn't mean that you wouldn't have access if you're from one of those areas. This just means that you would actually, when you're selecting your regional partner in the application form, you would just click the other, which is the national funding stream. So it just means that it would be adjudicated nationally with people from those respective areas that I mentioned. and otherwise you'll be dealing directly with CFC. Before applying, I would suggest gathering the documents that you're going to need to fill out the application form. The first being the actual PDF of the application form, so you can see all of the questions. Also, you should be gathering the past 5 years of financial statements, which are preferably third-party prepared, if you have them. If, for example, you've only been around or you've only been established for 3 years, then 3 years is fine. It's just the preferred. So we also require proof of current corporate filings, corporate bylaws if you have them, list and bios of management teams or relevant board members, specifically with the context of the IRP, so those that would help you move your project forward, and also a detailed project budget. As my colleague Sarah mentioned earlier, if you're located in Quebec, the CFC and Le Chantier de l'Économie Sociale are conducting a joint program in Quebec, and this is just their website, so you would be applying directly to them. So, all that to say that I hope this has given you a bit more details. I know that because we have so many people on, we're not going to be able to take questions directly in the webinar, but we are all standing by and we're here to answer your questions at readiness@communityfoundations.ca. And we also would advise that if you have any technical assistance issues with the application portal, you can contact that same email address, or there's a little help button on the top right of the application form if you have something like a glitch in the system or you forget your password. So there's a lot. Yeah.
I'm just going to jump in. As I said, with the number of participants we have, and as you've repeated, it's not realistic, certainly to unmute people, nor to kind of do a Q&A. That being said, we've run nicely short on the time as we intended, and I have been keeping my eye on the chat box. So I'm just going to address a few questions that have been asked, 3, 4, 5 times, just for everyone's convenience and efficiency. But we're not going to start a huge long Q&A period. So just a few things that have been asked multiple times. Has this session been recorded and will it be available? The answer is yes. Both the recording as well as a copy of the slides will be posted on the CFC website, and I believe also on CFC's Facebook channel. Another question that's come up really often is about the type of organizations that can apply. So specific question, can charities apply? Absolutely, charities can apply. Can co-ops, can for-profits, can universities? I think, jump in, Michelle, you're the expert on this. But I believe that the restrictions are simply any type of corporation can apply, except not sole proprietorships. And I believe the municipal sector, municipalities are also excluded, just because this is a sort of government-funded program.
Right, and they could partner with others if that was something that, so a municipality could partner with another who was eligible for the program. And also any business that their activities are solely based internationally.
Okay. Another question people have asked, what is CSR? We referred in this presentation to the fact that this opportunity is for social enterprises, and we talked a little bit about how you know if you're a social enterprise, not for-profits with strong CSR programs. CSR, apologies to everyone for the use of acronyms, refers to corporate social responsibility. So there are many corporations in our landscape with strong programs to give away a portion of profits, for example, to charities, to volunteer in community, etc. Those are all fantastic things, but they don't fit the definition of a social enterprise, and they're not to whom this program of the IRP is aimed. There's also been some questions around the notion, we use the terminology qualified donees. Qualified donees refers to organizations that have a registered status as a charity or different type of qualified donee with the Canada Revenue Agency. And so those are organizations that may receive and receipt charitable tax donations, and are through their regulation by Canada Revenue Agency deemed to be, by definition, social purpose organizations. We've also received question, and you touched on this one again briefly, Michelle, about, well, what if, with respect to the list of participating community foundations, I don't see my community? Something that has happened in the context of this program is that we have worked with the community foundation network across the country to expand the range, the geography of who they are serving uniquely for the purpose of this program. And so we do have, I think, Michelle, it's in the neighborhood of 95% coverage
Yep.
of the percentage of the Canadian population being served by one of the community foundations or consortia of community foundations on that list. And again, that list is available on the CFC website. It also appears as a drop down on the application form. If you don't fit, if you're part of the other 5%, no problem. You will just be applying directly to Community Foundations of Canada. So no issues there. A few questions about preference for for-profits, not-for-profits, charities, early stage enterprises, late stage enterprises. There are no prescribed quotas or preferences around those things. So the program truly is open to all types of corporations and organizations, and as well as enterprises that are as early as the idea stage and as late as that very last thing we need to do to prepare our paperwork to be in market looking for investors. So true range.
And I can give an example there if that's helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I've had this question a couple of times, which says, how are you eligible if all you have is an idea, because you might not be registered yet? And one example of that would be that you are already, for example, a registered charity, but you're looking to explore the idea of having a revenue generating stream. So it would be a separate program that you're looking to see if it would be feasible within your existing structure.
Great, thanks for that clarification, Michelle. Again, a couple other things I'll just pick up on quickly. With respect to the variety of organizations that are making funding available through the Investment Readiness Program, you may apply to more than one for different things. So it is not possible to get double funded for the same work, but it is possible to apply for different things to different partners. If you're not successful in one round with any with us, I won't speak for the other partners because I'm not 100% certain. It is possible to apply again. No, please do not apply to multiple community foundations. Please submit the application form online. It's really just one form, and you're simply selecting by virtue of your geography to whom it should be directed. You should do that on the basis of your corporate mailing address. Again, Michelle, jump in if I'm leading people astray. But for for organizations with multiple locations, you should apply by virtue of your corporate headquarters or mailing list.
There are also, sorry, can I jump in quickly? Yeah, so there's also a situation, for example, if you have your, for example, your organization is based in Toronto, but your activity actually takes place in one of the territories, say in Nunavut, you might be more comfortable applying or to, maybe that's not a great example, say your activities are based in BC, near Prince George. So you might be more comfortable applying to the community foundation in Prince George instead, where you know that you have strong community ties. This wouldn't be the situation for everybody, but this is just an example where you feel that you would be, your application would be reviewed stronger if the community that you're actually serving is doing that adjudication process. I just wanted to add that in quickly.
Yeah, okay. Couple other things. A few people are asking questions about the requirement for 5 years of financial statements in the application. If you haven't existed for 5 years, or you haven't been doing that kind of documentation for 5 years, that will still be acceptable. Again, you know, we just want, we want what you have up to 5 years. Again, emphasize that there is an openness to early stage enterprise, so things in the early, you know, idea and exploration phase. There's questions about the relationship to the social finance fund. So there's a conceptual relationship in that this is about readiness to participate in that ecosystem, but there is no causal relationship between applying to or being successful in the IRP and being included in any way in the social finance fund. That's an entirely separate process of which the details have not been published yet by the Government of Canada, but there will not be a direct or causal relationship between the two things. There will be another intake through Community Foundations of Canada for the IRP. We have not finalized the dates for that, but it will most likely be in the early fall of 2020, so at the end of the summer. I think that's it. I'm doing the thing I said I wouldn't do, which is find into all the questions in the chat box, but I'm just trying to pick up the ones that are being asked many, many times. There's quite a few questions about sole proprietorships and legal formats. I think I'm going to leave those for people to submit through the email address. I'm not gonna go into that one here. So with that in mind, I think we're gonna wrap it up. I don't see anything else that I'm gonna jump in on. The rest of the questions are, sorry, I mean, obviously there's many, 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 but they're mostly about corporate forms and or very specific questions to single parts of the country or organizations. And I think those are best dealt with directly, and we'll be very happy to hear from you at readiness@communityfoundations.ca.
And I also just want to mention that we have a website that's up and running that is a full host of all of the different projects and partners in the IRP. And so that's irp-ppi.ca. And that's where you can find out more about all of the different partners and the projects that they're working on, and also potentially resources and events that are happening in your area. So if you go to that website, you'll find out a whole host of information about the program itself. Sarah, do you want to wrap it up?
Sure. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you for all your questions. We know there's probably many, many, many unanswered questions. We welcome your questions at readiness@communityfoundations.ca. We also encourage you to make contact with your local community foundation that is participating directly as a regional partner. Again, that list is in these slides, which will be shared, but also available on the Community Foundations of Canada website and in a drop down on the application form. And we are so thrilled that there was so much interest in this webinar, and we're really excited to keep building with you towards investment readiness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.